In 1945, Japan declared surrender, and the Japanese troops stationed in Korea received instructions to prepare for the return to Japan with important research. The commander ordered the destruction of all base data, and furthermore, all individuals who had died in human experiments were gathered and burned together. The surviving prisoners were also executed without exception. Human lives were considered worthless in their eyes. These innocent civilians perished as part of the Japanese military's serum research. They aimed to create a human assimilation. After extensive research and testing, the Japanese military produced a total of 12 serums and 8 living, assimilated individuals. As for what these assimilated individuals are, the director has temporarily left it as a suspense. The leading Japanese person glanced at the iron door, and a terrifying force kept striking it. The thick iron door had a bulge from the impact, indicating that the assimilated individuals were imprisoned inside. The Japanese military didn't want to waste any more time. They ignited a large fire to destroy the base and withdrew. The whole story unfolds from there. Here, I want to clarify in advance that Seoul was actually called Hansung or Kijo during the Japanese colonial period. However, to avoid confusion, we will use the name Seoul. It was the end of March 1945, and Japan had not yet surrendered. Spring arrived unusually early in Seoul that year, and news of the massive explosion in Tokyo spread rapidly, causing a quiet restlessness throughout Korea. In order to maintain order, the military arrested all those involved in secretly printing newspapers, and called for Koreans to join the Imperial Army and worship at Yasukuni Shrine. Although it was ostensibly a call, in reality, it was a forced enlistment of young men. It is said that the darkest hour is just before dawn, and it seems that the Japanese military realized they were on the decline, so they began to torment the people with their final efforts. A pawnshop Kim Ok-dang, its owner Jang Taesang, fell into the hands of the enemy, and narrowly avoided being labeled as a member of the Independence Army. Speaking of Kim Ok-dang, it is the largest pawnshop in Seoul, but Taesang is not a second-generation wealthy person. He is a self-made representative figure. He is a smooth talker, always lingering at various social gatherings. He is known as a golden bachelor. The soldiers outside the door couldn't help but gossip. What exactly did the young master of Kim Ok-dang do? The two of them chatted and discussed, saying that Taesang was involved in a complicated relationship with the police officer's wife. After Officer Ishikawa finished punishment and dispersed the crowd, he immediately changed his expression. It turns out Ishikawa had a favor to ask. Taesang is known as a jack of all trades, so Ishikawa entrusted him to find the missing geisha, Akiko, and investigate whether she was having an affair. If Taesang fails to find her, his assets will be confiscated. Taesang returned home with great anxiety. In fact, there have been frequent cases of women going missing in the capital recently, causing great anxiety in both the southern and northern villages. Taesang wanted to leave with money, but his real estate holdings were difficult to liquidate, and Ishikawa's men were guarding downstairs. He could only use all his connections to search for clues. Then, Taesang instructed his colleague, Park Gun, to arrange a meeting with the young Master Juntaek. In all of Seoul, perhaps the only person daring enough to have an affair with Ishikawa's lover is this young master. At this moment, a woman named Chioke was hiding downstairs, secretly observing Taesang's residence. Chioke and her father, Yoon, came to Seoul a few days ago. They wanted to find a Japanese man named Sakamoto. However, they inquired for a long time but had no gain. Instead, they learned about Taesang's reputation as a jack of all trades, so they came to investigate. It was approaching evening when Taesang finally left his house. He brazenly approached the informant arranged by Ishikawa. He asked the informant to take him to the northern village. Chioke, seeing this, quickly rode her motorcycle to follow. As for why Ishikawa valued this lover so much, it was because Akiko was pregnant. Ishikawa thought she had eloped with someone else. Unbeknownst to him, Akiko had been abducted by the Japanese. She, along with other missing women, was kept in a prison cell. Every few days, the Japanese soldiers would take one person away, and lock them in a separate room. On the floor, they would place a plate of chewy rice cakes and plain water. After eating the rice cakes, the women would inevitably drink water. At that moment, the toxins would enter their bodies. The scene shifts to Nawaldarek, the housekeeper at Kim Ok-dang. She followed Taesang's instructions to sell valuable collectibles. If they couldn't find Akiko, they would have to abandon the real estate and escape with as much cash as possible. The boss who exchanged money saw that Nawaldarek was in a hurry to ask for money. Unable to hold back, he exclaimed that the rumors turned out to be true. Recently, there have been rumors circulating. Taesang suffered a big loss at Ishikawa's place. Unexpectedly, he really has to take the money and run. Upon hearing this, Nawaldarek told the boss to keep his mouth shut. This matter must not be leaked. The boss couldn't help but add another sentence. He said that 2 spies have arrived in Seoul. It is said that there is no person they can't find. If Taesang encounters trouble, he can go to those 2 people for help. The spies the boss referred to, most likely are Chayoke and her father. At this moment, she is following Taesang to the northern village. However, Taesang has already noticed. In the blink of an eye, he slipped into an alley, and stood behind the woman. But he underestimated Chayoke's skills. He was countered by her. Naturally, Taesang refused to take this loss. He immediately got up and fought back. This time, he was prepared and regained his dignity. Unexpectedly, in the midst of their struggle, Taesang accidentally knocked off Chayoke's hat. Only then did he realize that the person in front of him was a beautiful woman. In the blink of an eye when he was distracted, Chayoke immediately launched a sneak attack. Both of them defended against each other's vital points. Seeing that she didn't have the intention to kill, he took the lead and put away his weapon. Chayoke also eased her attitude and asked Taesang to find someone. Then she started describing Sakamoto's features. Unexpectedly, the other party was careless and casual. The 2 of them couldn't reach an agreement and ended up parting ways unhappily. Taesang turned around and went to meet young Master Juntake in the northern village. Unexpectedly, it turned out that he had a relationship with Akiko. However, that was all before Ishikawa. Young Master Juntake doesn't care about Akiko. He advised Taesang to simply bring out his assets, to help the patriots and the country. Taesang became somewhat angry upon hearing this. He grew up without parents. He has been bullied in this country. National righteousness means nothing to him. Taesang only believes in the security that money brings. When he returned home, Nawaldarek had already invited Mr. Yoon and his daughter. Taesang was momentarily dumbfounded. After a brief exchange of information between the 2 sides, they eventually agreed to collaborate. Because Taesang has a wide network of connections in Japan, it would be convenient to search for the Japanese painter Sakamoto, and Mr. Yoon and his daughter are skilled at finding people in the lower levels. The scene shifts back to the Japanese military side. The subjects during the day have shown some response. The guy with glasses ordered to inject serum into her. Then they sent someone to invite the painter to come and document. This painter is none other than Sakamoto that Chayoke was looking for. Sakamoto, who had just graduated from Tokyo University of Fine Arts a year ago, came to Seoul Wangseong Hospital to earn some extra remuneration. He arrived at the Wangseong Hospital in Seoul. The Japanese director in charge of this place threw him a book titled Anatomy of the Human Body. He instructed Sakamoto to familiarize himself with the human body, because what he had to paint was humans. The director used Korean prisoners of war for live dissections, and he asked Sakamoto to refine the contents of the anatomy book. Over the past year, he had witnessed the most hideous side of human nature. However, he was still frightened by the scene before him. The creature in the cage couldn't be called human at all, but Sakamoto recognized the necklace she was wearing. This woman, who had transformed into a monster, was highly likely to be Chayoke's missing mother, who has been missing for many years. The purpose of the father and daughter becoming spies was to find their lost family members. Late at night, to investigate the case of Akiko, Chayoke infiltrated Ishikawa's mansion. Using her extraordinary skills, she found Maeda Yukiko, the wife of the police officer, secretly handing a letter to the man in the suit outside the window. Without hesitation, Chayoke followed them. She saw the man in the suit stop in front of a mansion. He bowed respectfully to the person across the street. He even opened the door for the other person. The next day, Mr. Yoon and his daughter arrived at Kim Okdang. They spent half a day, and found the rickshaw driver who carried Akiko 7 days ago. He was also the last person to see Akiko. The shopkeeper in the store was very surprised. He had already questioned the brothel's rickshaw drivers thoroughly. Chayoke stated that the rickshaw driver was not from the brothel. Just think, who hates the other woman the most? Of course, it's the legal wife. So, she followed the man in the suit from last night, and found the rickshaw driver commonly used by Yukiko. The father and daughter used some methods to let the rickshaw drivers tell something, and as a result, they learned that 7 days ago, Yukiko had arranged a meeting with Akiko. The rickshaw driver mentioned that after Akiko left Ishikawa's mansion, she went to Wangseong Hospital, and after Akiko arrived at the hospital, she completely disappeared. The shopkeeper said that it didn't make sense. If it wasn't the identity of the Japanese military or the police, or someone related to the Governor General's office, it would be difficult to enter Wangseong Hospital. How could Akiko, just a Korean geisha, have the ability Taisang suddenly thought of a possibility. What if Yukiko had made arrangements in advance? It seemed that they had to visit Wangseong Hospital. Taisang took a stack of cash to seek Juntake's help in gaining access. Although Juntake is a member of the Underground Independence Army, he does have a respectable background. Taisang borrowed his ID card for temporary use. Before long, Mr. Yoon and his daughter arrived. They even changed into the clothes he had prepared. After all, wealthy people shouldn't dress too shabbily, and Chayoke looked radiant after dressing up. The group successfully infiltrated by using Juntake's identity information. Taisang and the shopkeeper pretended to be sick at the reception desk, causing a commotion. Their intention was to divert everyone's attention. Meanwhile, Chayoke took the opportunity to enter the reference room. Little did they know that An Cleaner caught sight of her suspicious behavior. Chayoke hurriedly browsed through the files, in an attempt to find information about Akiko's medical visit. Unexpectedly, the cleaner walked in. Fortunately, Mr. Yoon arrived just in time. However, the cleaner meant no harm. Instead, the cleaner asked if they were Manchurians, and then he made a patriotic gesture. On the other side, the shopkeeper was extremely anxious. He was about to be pricked with a needle by the doctor. Finally, Taisang saw Mr. Yoon and his daughter coming out of the reference room. They immediately acted as if they were cured. They repeatedly praised the doctor for his excellent medical skills. The doctor looked bewildered upon hearing the words. "I haven't administered the injection yet. How did you all suddenly recover?" The group was about to leave the hospital, when suddenly, a loud noise rang out. The nurse explained that it was the sound of the military conducting shooting exercises, but the sound clearly came from underground. At the same time, in the underground area of the hospital, the test subjects had transformed into monsters. One of them extended long tentacles and killed a soldier. A young man tried to save his comrade, but he was also caught by the monster. The end of the tentacle opened up, locking onto the young man's head, and draining him completely. The guy wearing glasses showed a gaze in astonishment. He even gave the monster the name Goddess. The scene shifted back to the main characters. Chayoke led the group into an empty room, and explained that she had to stay at the hospital tonight, because the cleaner had just informed them that behind the hospital, there was a military-exclusive ward. The basement of that building was highly suspicious. The Korean people who were transferred from the Westgate prison were being held there, and everyone who went in never came out. Furthermore, all the people vanished without a trace. The reason why the cleaner betrayed was his younger brother had been sent there from the prison a year ago, and since then, he had completely disappeared. That's why the cleaner came to work here, to investigate his brother's whereabouts. Chayoke asked Taisang to go back first, to avoid arousing suspicion from the guards. She and her father will stay behind to investigate. Taisang was still worried and wanted to follow them, but suddenly, the hospital's alarm went off. The nurse's face changed upon hearing it. She asked Taisang and the others to leave immediately. It turns out there was a problem underground. The goddess was almost breaking down the door. The bespectacled guy instructed his subordinates to prepare nitrogen gas. After a large-scale spraying, the goddess finally fainted. Her body activated its self-defense mechanism. It started releasing harmful spores. Soldiers wearing protective suits dragged the goddess into a cage, and following the bespectacled guy's instructions, they took her to the 4th underground level. For a moment, the entire cell was filled with spores. The imprisoned people thought it was snowing. They reached out their hands to catch it, but soon after, their skin touched the spores and started to decay. They clung to the iron bars, screaming in madness, unable to bear the excruciating pain. Fortunately, prudent Akiko intentionally avoided the floating spores. Meanwhile, Chayoke and the others reached the top floor stealthily. They secretly observed the building behind. That place is heavily guarded and difficult to penetrate. Only the watchtower on the east side is unattended. The cleaner explained that the tower there is unstable. Someone had accidentally fallen to their death there before, so it was completely abandoned. Chayoke planned to take the risk and give it a try. She was agile, just like a gecko, and she slid down to the lower floor through the pipeline. Chayoke avoided the patrolling soldiers, while Yoon kept watching upstairs, signaling and guiding her. The father and daughter had perfect understanding, and Chayoke surreptitiously climbed up the watchtower. From there, she saw the soldiers below busily moving around. The pickup truck was filled with corpses, and the scene of death was extremely gruesome. Taisang was uneasy on the other side, and very worried about Chayoke's safety. Of course, he hadn't forgotten about finding Sakamoto. Taisang went to find Ishikawa's informant, and instructed him to go back and report to the boss, to find a painter named Sakamoto. and mentioned that this person is related to Akiko's disappearance. The next day, news suddenly spread that an unknown infectious disease had broken out in Wangseong Hospital, and it would be closed indefinitely. No one could enter from outside, and no one could come out from inside. This completely unsettled Tai-sang. Just as he was about to leave, he saw the nurse from yesterday, who handed him a note. It said, "Akiko has been found." The nurse was in an extremely unstable emotional state, and she was unsure about Chayoke's condition. She only knew that many people died last night, and the number was uncountable. Tai-sang didn't understand why the nurse risked her life to pass on the message. In response, she made a gesture of the patriot, conveying everything without words. Tai-sang was still worried about Chayoke, and decided to personally go to the hospital. But what exactly happened at the hospital last night? Let's go back 6 hours ago. In the prison cells of Wangseong Hospital, there was a mountain of corpses. Soldiers dragged the bodies into the corridors and proceeded to disinfect the area. A major, accompanied by a quarantine team, was escorting the goddess. Unexpectedly, the iron cage got stuck in the elevator. Several people pushed hard to get it inside, but accidentally closed the nitrogen valve. One team member quickly realized the problem as the spores in the air disappeared, indicating that the goddess had awakened. As expected, in the next second, her tentacles pierced through the iron cage. The team immediately fired a counterattack. When the elevator doors opened, only one person stumbled out, but in the next second, he was swept away by the tentacles. The scene inside the elevator was horrifying, with the massive iron doors smashed open, but the goddess was nowhere to be found. The major, with his arms severed, raised his gun and threatened the surviving soldiers to quickly close the elevator. The soldier had no choice but to obey the command. Little did he know, the elevator doors creaked, and in the next second, thick and strong tentacles wrapped around his ankles. The soldier held onto the door frame tightly, refusing to let go. The major pressed his gun against the soldier's head. At this moment, he was still forcing the soldier to close the door. He didn't dare to shoot to avoid attracting the attention of the goddess. So, he fiercely smashed the soldier's face and head with the gun. The soldier, unable to hold on any longer, finally loosened his grip. The major immediately closed the elevator doors. Little did he know, the goddess hadn't spared him. The scene before terrified the major. He raised his handgun and shot randomly. Hastily, he started the elevator to ascend, and by sheer luck, he managed to survive. As for the quarantine team, they all perished. The major had witnessed the power of the goddess firsthand. He wanted to plead with the bespectacled guy to stop the experiment. But at this time, Japan had just experienced a major bombing, and they needed weapons like the goddess. The scene shifts back to the male lead. Although he wanted to go to the hospital to find Chayoke, it wouldn't be easy to get in. Tai-sang tried to ask Yukiko for help but to no avail. He could only arrange for the shopkeeper to find the hospital's floor plan, and it had to be prepared before 10 p.m. tonight, because the young nurse asked Tai-sang to signal from the eastern window of Wangseong Hospital at 10 o'clock, saying it was the only chance to rescue Chayoke. At this moment, Chayoke was hiding in the cleaner's supply room. Strangely, there was a Japanese soldier with her. What exactly is going on? It turns out that the Japanese soldier was actually a Korean man named Choi. He was studying at the medical school of Imperial University in Seoul, but halfway through his studies, he was conscripted into the military. Due to injuries sustained during the Phonglin battle, he was sent to Wangseong Hospital for treatment. After recovering from his injuries, he stayed behind to carry out quarantine tasks. He was well aware that the spores released last night contained anthrax bacteria, which could be deadly upon contact. When Choi was cleaning the corpses in the prison cells, he encountered the surviving Akiko. Although he wanted to help, his abilities were limited as Koreans were at the bottom of the social hierarchy in Wangseong Hospital. Choi had been subjected to constant oppression, and had his own struggles to deal with. That night, he had initially planned to put an end to it all, but luckily, Chayoke's compassion saved him. Now, the four of them had created a simple floor plan, and Choi was familiar with the underground cells. He knew that the security there was tight, with a guard stationed every 10 meters, not to mention whether they could rescue Akiko. Even if they managed to get her out of the cell, escaping from the hospital would still be a problem. Therefore, until they received the signal from Tai-sang, the group planned to remain still and wait for the cleaner and Choi to leave. Yoon and his daughter exchanged glances. They had encountered similar underground laboratories in Manchuria. On the other side, Tai-sang received a sketch of a woman through his informant. The sketch was sent by the landlady, and Tai-sang found it strange, so he went to inquire about it. As a result, he learned that the sketch was done by Sakamoto. The landlady had great connections, and she had arranged to meet Sakamoto at the Seihai building at 8 o'clock. Taisang arrived half an hour early and waited downstairs, using Ishikawa's informant's car of course. Once the landlady appeared, he followed her upstairs. But unfortunately, a group of Japanese people showed up looking for trouble. Taisang tried to advise them peacefully, but they wouldn't listen, forcing him to fight back, while the Japanese had too many accomplices. And Taisang couldn't break free. He even suffered a cut from a samurai sword, after finally managing to escape their clutches. The private room in the Seihai building was already empty. Taisang returned home with a dejected look. It was the first time he had experienced such humiliation, being oppressed and beaten by the Japanese. In his own country, he instructed the shopkeeper to bring the floor plan. This time, Taisang would not back down. Just then, Juntake and the innkeeper appeared. And surprisingly, they brought Sakamoto along. On the other side, Chioke couldn't wait for the signal to appear, so she decided to investigate with her father first, if the internal structure here was the same as in Manchuria. The ventilation ducts must be interconnected, allowing direct access from the underground to the top floor, so Chioke sneaked into the ducts from the rooftop. While Yoon stayed outside as a lookout, Chioke followed the floor plan drawn by Choi, but accidentally entered the experimental specimen room. There, heads of various people were soaking in formalin, including freshly formed fetuses. Chioke was horrified and involuntarily took a few steps back. But then a hand grabbed her. She turned around and met several pairs of desperate eyes. As Chioke thought about these imprisoned children, she realized they would soon become specimens in glass jars. An indescribable anger welled up in her chest. The little girl desperately pleaded for Chioke's help. The female lead glanced at the time and realized it was almost 10 o'clock. But she couldn't ignore the lives at stake, so she sent the people in the iron cage into the vent. Unexpectedly, a person in a white coat arrived at the door. In the next second, he turned on the lights and prepared the reagents, only to discover that the people in the iron cage were gone. He looked around and noticed that the vent was open. He was about to rush out to call for help, but Chioke wouldn't give him a chance to leave alive. Meanwhile, Sakamoto arrived at the hospital by rickshaw. He claimed to have bought many essential items, and wanted to enter the hospital directly by carriage. The security guard initially didn't want to let the rickshaw driver in, but Sakamoto insisted that the items were for the director's use. He said that if they intercepted him, they would have to report it to the director. The security guard thought it would be better to avoid unnecessary trouble, and allowed Sakamoto and the rickshaw driver to enter the hospital. Taisang, disguised as the rickshaw driver, parked the rickshaw in an empty place, and then revealed the young master, Juntake, from under the carriage canopy. The three of them carried boxes and entered the hospital. On the other side, the shopkeeper and his assistant headed towards the back mountain in a car. The deadline of 10 o'clock was approaching, and the cleaner anxiously looked at his watch. Unfortunate Choi was being punished in the military camp, while Chioke swiftly crawled with a few children. When Taisang and the others entered the cleaner's supply room, there was no one inside because the signal had not been sent yet. The others were unaware that Taisang had already arrived. As if the heavens wanted more excitement, a group of Japanese soldiers stole alcohol from the warehouse, and went to the rooftop to get drunk. Chioke, of course, had no knowledge of this. She climbed to the top floor through the vent and tapped on the wall, in an attempt to signal her father. Unfortunately, several Japanese soldiers heard the noise. They quickly grabbed their weapons and rushed over to investigate. Yoon feared that his daughter would be captured, decided to step forward and divert their attention. At this critical moment, suddenly, several fireworks exploded in the sky, captivating everyone's attention. Taking advantage of the distraction, Yoon lunged at the soldiers, and Chioke emerged from the vent to help her father. Together, they quickly subdued a group of soldiers. Unexpectedly, a bearded man aimed at Chioke from behind, and then a gunshot rang out. Both father and daughter felt a sinking feeling, but it was the bearded man who fell to the ground. Chioke saw that it was Taisang who had fired the shot, and the tension that had gripped her finally eased. It turned out that when Chioke left the cleaner's supply room, she had drawn an arrow on the wall, indicating her intention to go to the rooftop. Fortunately, Taisang understood the situation. As for the fireworks, it was the shopkeeper and his companions who set them off. Taisang quickly asked about Akiko's whereabouts. However, several unfamiliar children emerged from the vent, leaving Taisang completely puzzled about the situation. Meanwhile, the director was in the process of taming the goddess, preparing to replicate Pavlov's dog. At the sound of a bell, he would feed the goddess, hoping that she would recognize him as her master. Taisang's side struggled hard to shake off Ishikawa's informant. He planned everything from start to finish, just to save Akiko and preserve the family estate. But Chioke couldn't find that geisha at all. Instead, she brought him a bunch of troubles. Taisang couldn't rescue so many children. He first sent the children back to the cleaning room. Taisang is now preoccupied with legal matters. He completely forgot to introduce Sakamoto to Chioke. At this time, the Japanese army had already discovered the body of the white coat. They were ordering a search for the escaped prisoners. Taisang, Chioke, and Choi didn't dare to delay. They hid the survivors in the cleaning car, and transported them to Sakamoto's room. One child was frightened by the painting, suddenly shouted loudly. Fortunately, the soldier only stood by the door and listened for a while, did not come in to inspect. Taisang and Chioke walked into the compartment. Only then did they see the walls filled with human and monster drawings. Taisang told Chioke, "This person is the one you're looking for. He is Sakamoto." Chioke immediately took out her mother's portrait. She obtained this clue a year ago, knowing that this painting was done by Sakamoto, so she traced it all the way to Korea. Sakamoto showed a sad expression. Chioke's mother is the goddess. Now she has completely become a monster. She is also the only successful experiment in the laboratory. Sakamoto might feel reluctant, so he didn't tell Chioke the truth, only saying he doesn't know the whereabouts of this person. Upon hearing this, Chioke felt utterly hopeless, and Taisang stepped forward to assign tasks. He had the eldest child disguise as a rickshaw man, while the rest hid inside the yellow rickshaw and departed. Taisang instructed the eldest child to keep their head down and walk straight ahead, absolutely not stopping or looking around. Taisang's car had been modified. It could hide many people inside. The soldier who heard the scream just now quickly went to report to the superior. The latter went with their subordinates to investigate Sakamoto. However, the Japanese soldiers arrived too late. The children had already left in the rickshaw. The guards initially wanted to intercept the rickshaw man, but Yukiko happened to visit the hospital. With a salute from the guards, the rickshaw drove away. The children followed the instructions to seek refuge with Nawal Darek. Meanwhile, Sakamoto and the cleaner, to avoid attention, bid farewell to the main character group one after another. Taisang didn't want to involve Mr. Yoon and his daughter, so he let them figure out a way to leave as well. As for Juntake, he followed into the hospital. He already had his own mission. Chioke is a bit stubborn. She will definitely fulfill her promise to the employer. Moreover, Taisang helped rescue so many children. Chioke won't abandon him. Several people plan to re-enter from the rooftop, to continue searching for Akiko's whereabouts. However, young Master Juntake had his own ideas. He saw the Japanese soldiers tied up on the rooftop. He insisted on pulling out his knife and leaving a mark. In this moment of delay, the Japanese soldiers noticed someone on the top floor. They immediately went to investigate, and they saw the bound soldier. There was a piece of white cloth inserted into the body, with "Korean Independence" written on it. Upon seeing this, everyone immediately blew the whistle. The entire hospital went into alert mode. An observant military policeman noticed a ventilation opening nearby, and found traces of someone breaking in, so he followed and crawled inside. On the other side, the hospital director went to meet with Yukiko. He showed great respect to this woman. Yukiko instructed the hospital director to ensure Akiko's safety before the child's birth. She must not die under any circumstances. Upon hearing this, the hospital director sent someone to relocate Akiko. A chubby man was responsible for escorting her. They passed by above where the goddess was being held. The entire hospital was busy capturing the intruders. No one paid attention to the goddess, but the Japanese forgot that the monster wasn't a puppy. The goddess crushes the iron wall with one hand. She sees the location of the elevator. She carefully observes the walls. Sure enough, she finds a lever. On the other side, the chubby man separates Akiko and leaves with his subordinates. They patiently wait for the elevator doors to open. Unexpectedly, a massive shadow emerges. The goddess unexpectedly runs out, and unleashes a crushing slaughter. She indiscriminately attacks any creature within her sight. Taisang and the others hear the continuous sound of sirens. They realize they have been exposed. Now they must abandon the rooftop exit. Sakamoto had informed Chioke about another passage, located in the laundry room on the second basement floor. There is a chute inside for throwing surgical gowns and cleaning clothes. It's spacious enough for an adult to pass through. They immediately take action. They return to the ventilation duct. Little do they know, the military policeman is following behind. They quickly arrive at the second basement floor. Chioke notices that Taisang is moving slowly. In fact, Taisang's previous injury from the samurai sword has recurred. He has been enduring the pain without saying anything. Just then, he noticed a flashlight behind him. Only then did he realize someone was behind him. Taisang quickly placed the barrier back, and jumped into the chute with Chaoke. However, the military policeman caught up. He confiscated Taisang's gun, and kicked him aside. Chaoke took the opportunity to disarm the military policeman. The group fought in the cramped laundry room. Meanwhile, the goddess was wreaking havoc outside. She grabbed a soldier's head and rubbed it against the iron door. Bodies were flying everywhere. However, the laundry room was not as exhilarating. While Taisang was fighting the military policeman, young Master Juntaik took advantage of the chaos and escaped. Taisang gritted his teeth and held onto the military policeman. They both fell into a pile of dirty laundry. The military policeman held the gun, trying to kill Taisang, but Taisang resisted with all his might. Then, a gunshot rang out. At this moment, Mr. Yoon and his daughter finally came over to see what was happening. Fortunately, Taisang took down the military policeman. However, his wound completely reopened. Chaoke felt sorry seeing this. She quickly helped Taisang bandage his wound. Mr. Yoon suggested that they split up. He would go to the third basement floor to find Akiko. Taisang and the others would stay on the second floor to search. They would meet at the designated location after half an hour. If he didn't show up, Taisang would leave with Chaoke first. After Mr. Yoon finished speaking, he pushed the door and left. Meanwhile, the goddess was riding the elevator upwards, continuing to conquer other floors. Coincidentally, she chose the second basement floor. Taisang was completely dumbfounded when he saw the creature in front of him. He couldn't help but take a few steps back, staring intently ahead. Amidst the chaos and confusion, underground party, young Master Juntaik infiltrated the prison cell, in search of a comrade named Lee In-hyuk. This story is quite long. Young Master Juntaik, through his father's connections, learned that the Japanese army would hold a fundraising event in 15 days. All prominent figures would be present. For the Independence Army, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They originally planned to blow up the venue. The only person who knew the location of the explosive stockpile was Lee In-hyuk. He was arrested while printing newspapers. Instead of being sent to a penitentiary, he was captured and taken to the Wangseong Hospital. To ensure the upcoming uprising goes smoothly, young Master Juntaik must find Lee In-hyuk, and he actually found him. Young Master Juntaik knew that rescuing him would be difficult, so he asked Lee In-hyuk to reveal the location of the hidden explosives. Unfortunately, the latter's revolutionary conviction was not strong. If young Master Juntaik wouldn't save him, and he wouldn't disclose the location of the explosives. In the midst of all this delay, young Master Juntaik was captured by the Japanese army. The situation was even worse for Taisang. He hid behind a railing to avoid the monster's attack. Chaoke slid closer to the body of the military police officer. She picked up a gun from the ground and fired at the goddess, without realizing that the monster in front of her was her own mother, whom she had been searching for 10 years. Just then, the rifle jammed. Taisang quickly pulled Chaoke away to escape. The goddess's flesh automatically healed, pushing out all the bullets and weapons from her body. She chased after Taisang closely. Upon hearing the gunshot, Yoon returned to the second floor. Taisang and Chaoke didn't have time to think. They avoided the goddess's attacks. They quickly slipped into a nearby space. Taisang gritted his teeth and closed the iron door. The two of them temporarily escaped the danger. Yoon, who caught up, also saw the monster. He used something from his bag to make makeshift explosives. He fired the gun to lure the goddess towards him. The terrifying monster roared at him. Who would have thought these two were once a loving couple? Ignoring the injury on his arm, he suddenly threw the makeshift explosive forward. The flames forced the goddess to retreat. Taking this opportunity, Yoon escaped. Taisang and Chaoke noticed there was no movement outside the door. Before they could escape, they were surrounded by soldiers. The difference in numbers between the two sides was too great. They could only surrender with their hands tied. The goddess escaped this time. It wiped out an entire squad. Most importantly, she can control the elevators. The Japanese side has cut off the power to the elevators and positioned machine gun teams at all exits. The director is furious and his subordinates has brought young Master Juntaik in Seoul. Who doesn't recognize the son of the BU gang merchants? But the rules of the outside world don't apply within the Wangseong Hospital. The director ordered young Master Juntaik to be taken to the laboratory, preparing to extort a hefty sum of money from him. Taisang and Chaoke were taken to the office of the administrator. The administrator only took Taisang with him. Choi is among the escort team. Chaoke was pushed into a prison cell for interrogation. The situation is completely different for Taisang. After the Tokyo bombings, the administrator believes that Japan's prospects are bleak. He wants to stay in Seoul with his family, as long as Taesang can help him acquire a property and provide resettlement funds. The administrator is willing to show leniency. Taesang doesn't easily trust the administrator. The administrator admitted that he noticed Taesang hiding in the dark when he was searching Sakamoto earlier. Yet, he left with his subordinates. That should prove my sincerity. Taesang expressed willingness to cooperate. You have to tell me where Chayoke and Akiko are. In the end, the two reached a deal. Taesang also asked the administrator for help with 3 things. First, to pass a message to Nawal Darek. Second, to temporarily remove the guards and sentries from their posts. As for the third matter, the director of the episode did not give specific instructions. Immediately after, Taesang was thrown into Lee In-hyuk's prison cell. When the guards were distracted by the administrator, he quickly unlocked the door and escaped. The fellow inmate sought his help upon seeing this. Taesang handed the key to Lee In-hyuk, and instructed him, "If you trust me, do not make any sudden moves within the next 30 minutes. After saying that, Taesang ran towards the corridor. Meanwhile, Mustached Man was infuriated by Chayoke's attitude. He forcefully opened Chayoke's clothes, trying to use despicable means to force Chayoke to confess why she infiltrated the hospital. At a critical moment, the bespectacled guy unexpectedly appeared. He admired Chayoke's indomitable spirit, and inexplicably felt a sense of familiarity with this woman. The bespectacled guy approached Chayoke to observe, and was suddenly enlightened. He asked Chayoke, "What is your mother's name?" Chayoke, for some unknown reason, blurted out the answer. The bespectacled guy heard that and thought that no wonder she looked so familiar. It turns out she is the goddess's daughter. The bespectacled guy realized that he had found another promising candidate. He then turned and handed Chayoke a glass of water. On the bespectacled guy's desk was an empty vial of serum. At that moment, Taesang quietly approached. He saw the bespectacled guy bringing Chayoke out, and instructed his subordinates that from now on, no one is allowed to touch this woman. Choi escorted Chayoke to an isolation room, and secretly handed her a dagger. As for whether Chayoke drank the glass of water, there was no clear shot. At that moment, she suddenly looked at the wall, and immediately burst into tears. It turned out there was a line of blood-written words on the wall. "I miss you so much, my daughter Chayoke." Shortly after, Taesang arrived. He knocked out 2 soldiers, and found the key to rescue Chayoke. After learning about her mother, Chayoke was determined to rescue her. Taesang understood Chayoke's determination, and instructed her to stay alive at all costs. On the other side, Juntaek, the young master, was injected with an unknown drug. The officer left behind a blank piece of paper and writing utensils, and asked him to confess his accomplices and mission. After speaking, the officer and his subordinates left. Juntaek's consciousness flickered, and he saw a glass jar on a cabinet, with a young head and a thumb-sized birthmark behind the ear, which matched the features of the cleaner's younger brother perfectly. Juntaek suffered torment in this place, while the director met his father in the cafe, attempting to secure research funding for the hospital. The wealthy old man, for the sake of his only son in the 3rd generation, could only comply with manipulation. However, the money was delivered to the director's car, but no definite answer was given. As soon as the director's car left, Nawal Darek and the shopkeeper suddenly appeared. They claimed to have a way to rescue Juntaek. Presumably, this must be related to Taesang's message. The scene shifts back to Wangseong Hospital. Juntaek, who has been pampered all his life, is now on the verge of collapse. He picks up a pen to prepare for confession. On the other side, Taesang and Chayoke head in different directions. One is determined to fulfill a promise, to save the innocent compatriots who are imprisoned, while the other is searching for a lost family member for the past 10 years. Chayoke returns to the bespectacled guy's presence, and presses him for information about her mother's whereabouts. Meanwhile, as Taesang fights his way back to the prison cell, he discovers that all the people inside have disappeared. Suddenly, a loud noise is heard from not far away. Where did the people in the prison go? As it turns out, they didn't stay obediently as agreed. Once Taesang left, Lee In-ho opened the prison door, and led everyone to rush out of the prison. However, they were intercepted by soldiers halfway. The soldiers threatened the prisoners to return to the prison, and proceeded to injure them as a warning. The young man didn't want to go back, so he stood up and aimed at the muzzle. After all, death was inevitable, so he preferred to die quickly. Just as the situation was critical, Taesang suddenly arrived at the scene, and shot the leading officer in retaliation. He commanded everyone to follow the road and keep going. Unexpectedly, a wounded soldier suddenly stood up, but before he could shoot, the goddess appeared. Taesang had witnessed the power of the monster before. He shouted for everyone to run quickly. The young man who lagged behind was caught by the goddess. In the blink of an eye he was no longer breathing. Lee In-ho wanted to seek revenge. But he became scared after crawling out just a few meters. Taishang aimed his gun and shot at the goddess. But unfortunately, the damage inflicted was not enough to pose a threat. At that moment, a nearby gas canister rolled over. And Taishang saw an opportunity. He deliberately shot to lure the goddess closer. Then seized the chance to smash the gas valve. A white nitrogen gas instantly filled the air, causing the goddess to fall into a state of unconsciousness. White spores emanated from her body. Taishang and Lee In-ho quickly retreated. On the other side, Glasses Guy looked at the cup on the table. And the microorganisms inside were still there. Sayu did not drink it as expected. Glasses Guy proudly introduced his invention, and finally revealed the truth to Sayu. The monster in the Wangqing hospital is your mother. The scene shifts to Juntae father, who reports to Mr. Ishikawa. Wangqing Hospital is related to the recent series of missing women cases. But the other party claims that the hospital is under military jurisdiction. The police bureau cannot intervene arbitrarily, given the circumstances. Jun's father can only inform Ishikawa. Taishang finds Mingzi inside the hospital. After Jun's father finishes speaking, he leaves the mansion, and nods to Aunt Luo who is standing outside as a signal. On the other hand, Taishang is reprimanding Lee In-ho, saying that if he had followed the agreement, everyone wouldn't have been injured. This group of patriotic youths brags about righteousness, but they don't even have the courage to face death. Taishang angrily scolded Juntae for seeing the wrong person, unaware that the young master has already confessed. The officer, seeing this, throws him a stack of papers, asking the young master to write down the members of the patriotic organization. Meanwhile, Lao Yin finds Taishang. Learning that his daughter went to find her mother, Taishang hands over the rescued people to Lao Yin, instructing him to enter the underground second floor through the side staircase. At the far end of the second floor, there is an empty ward where they can temporarily take shelter. After Taishang finishes his instructions, he prepares to go back and save Sayu. Meanwhile, a soldier reports to Glasses Guy that they have discovered a corpse infected with anthrax downstairs. But when the epidemic prevention team arrives at the scene, the goddess is already gone. Immediately after, Sayu changes into military attire, and, along with Glasses Guy, goes to find the goddess. No matter what, they must kill this monster. Unexpectedly, they are intercepted by 3 military police halfway. The leader of the group requests Glasses Guy's cooperation, as they want to release the remaining nitrogen gas on the underground second floor, to shoot and kill the monster. Because the Japanese army cannot afford any more personnel losses, little do they know, Glasses Guy states that bullets cannot kill the goddess, and the only way to kill her is through burning with fire. But can you do it? Upon recognizing Sayu, the military police raise their weapons. But since Glasses Guy is in their hands, they hesitate to make any rash moves. Just then, a soldier sneaks up from behind, and knocks down the outnumbered Sayu. Meanwhile, the hospital director receives news of the prisoner's escape. He was about to vent his anger on the administrator, when a soldier comes to report that Ishikawa has requested the hospital's assistance in the police investigation. The hospital director puts his foot on the administrator's head, and urges him to quickly capture the escaped prisoner, and then deal with Ishikawa. Although the director doesn't want to let Ishikawa in, he can't offend the police bureau's reputation, so he can only allow Ishikawa and his subordinates to enter the hospital. Afterwards, the hospital director instructs a soldier to move Mingzi to a more concealed location. After the people at the hospital entrance leave, the shopkeeper disguised as a police bureau driver anxiously checks the time, knowing that this is their last chance to rescue everyone. At that moment, Taishang goes to find Mingzi, only to discover that the prison cell is empty. Immediately, a soldier appears, and Taishang doesn't have time to engage with him, swiftly taking away the soldier's gun, and locking him up in a cell. Then, Taishang proceeds to the stairs ahead. Meanwhile, as Sayu regains consciousness, she realizes she is chained up with iron shackles, and there are dozens of fully armed soldiers across from her. Glasses Guy, who is leading them, wants to conduct an experiment, to see if the goddess can recognize her own daughter. They have already used nitrogen gas to drive the monster toward the elevator, and soon the mother and daughter will meet. Meanwhile, Taishang discovers Glasses Guy and the others, standing above the protective net, enjoying the experiment. A bow. noticing Taishang hiding in the dark. Intentionally speaks up and asks Glasses Guy, "Are we just going to let the monster kill Tsayu like this?" Taishang understands that this is the signal from Abao. Tsayu's situation is extremely critical right now, and she hardly has the courage to face this monster. Chayoke recognized her mother's necklace at a glance. It was only now that she confirmed the bespectacled guy had not lied. Goddess looked at the girl in front of her, recalling the happy times in her memories. The bespectacled guy saw that she didn't attack Chayoke, and ordered the soldiers to take down the monster. The goddess instinctively protected her daughter, countless bullets embedded in her flesh. The bespectacled guy ordered the release of nitrogen gas. The goddess swiftly turned around and attacked the soldiers. She forcefully broke the iron chains on Chayoke's body, want to save her daughter before falling into unconsciousness. Chayoke couldn't bear to watch her mother get hurt, rushed over to help. In the next second, she was dragged away by Taisang. He asked Chayoke to calm down a little. Taisang couldn't say anything in response. The cruelty of the Japanese far exceeds imagination. He could understand Chayoke's feelings. When Taisang was 9 years old, his mother was taken away by soldiers. His mother was a contact person for the Righteous Army. After being taken away, there was no news of her. Taisang has always remembered his mother's last words.
살아. 무슨 일이 있어도 끝까지 살겠다고 애미랑 약속해.
The top priority is to leave the Wangseong hospital first. The bespectacled guy knew that Chayoke was a big trouble. He ordered that no matter the cost, she must not be allowed to leave the hospital alive. Mustached Man immediately ordered his subordinates to conduct a thorough search. They found 2 individuals whose military uniforms had been stripped off. On the other side, Yoon and his men hid in the ward. Mustached Man's subordinates quickly searched the vicinity. However, they hesitated due to the fact that TB patients had stayed in this ward. As a result, the searchers were hesitant to proceed. Yoon held a knife and guarded the door. He instantly captured the person who entered. To their surprise, it was Choi, Chayoke, and their group. Soon, the administrator appeared with Akiko. This is probably the third thing he promised. The administrator knew that after tonight, the director would definitely not spare him. Therefore, he planned to seek refuge with Taisang, taking his wife and daughter with him. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper used 2 bottles of liquor to distract the soldiers guarding the gate. Taisang glanced at his watch. There were only 10 minutes left until the time he had planned. They had to catch the truck within this deadline. If they waited until exactly 6 o'clock, the Ishikawa's truck would depart.
상관없이 트럭은 제 시간에 출발할 겁니다.
Mustached Man has already given orders to close all the entrances and exits of the military hospital building. Taisang certainly wouldn't use the main entrance. They tore the bedsheets and twisted them into ropes. They descended one by one through the back window. As Mustached Man passed by the corridor, he suddenly stopped. 3 soldiers had just entered for a search. There was no flashlight inside the ward. He sent his subordinates to search. As soon as they opened the door, they saw Chayoke. In a critical moment, Choi shot and killed the soldier. However, the gunshot disrupted the plan. The gatekeeper soldier instantly became alert. He asked the shopkeeper to quickly move the truck. After hearing the gunshot, Mustached Man hurried to the 2nd floor. Taisang hurried everyone to speed up. Then they blocked the door with the bed and cupboard. He and Chayoke guarded the corridor, trying to buy more time for everyone. Choi didn't want to be a coward. He joined the 2 of them. Mustached Man's soldiers arrived at the scene and started shooting at the wardrobe. The chaotic gunshots continued to reach the director's office. Ishikawa asked what the hell he was up to. The director said, "If you're curious, get permission from the governor before asking. If that doesn't work, go home and ask your wife." On the other side, Mustached Man's soldiers destroyed the cover, and then cautiously approached. The next second, they were shot by bullets. The previous spray of gunfire didn't kill Taisang and Chayoke. Only unlucky Choi was hit by a bullet. He probably wouldn't be able to escape and see his mother. Choi handed something to Chayoke, asking her to help deliver it to his mother. Just as he finished speaking, the boy stopped breathing. Mustached Man was suddenly caught by the director's men. They received orders to capture the Koreans alive. Both sides argued about whether to capture them alive. At this moment, Lee In-hyuk came to Taisang and said that everyone had already retreated. They were waiting for Taisang and Chayoke.
아래서 봅시다.
Chae-ok and Lee In-hyuk landed one after another. But Tae-sang didn't appear. The next second, the rope was also thrown out of the window. Lee In-hyuk grabbed the impatient Chae-ok and said, "Tae-sang has decided to stay and distract the soldiers, until the truck safely leaves the hospital." Upon hearing this, Chae-ok wanted to go back to save people. Lee In-hyuk loudly stopped her. "Do you want to endanger everyone else?" Chae-ok had no choice but to prioritize the overall situation. The shopkeeper also remembered Nawaldarek's instructions. When the time came, even if Tae-sang didn't come, they had to leave. The shopkeeper started the truck, and followed Ishikawa's convoy out of the hospital. This side had already successfully retreated, while the mustached man on the other side had just finished arguing. Tae-sang remained alone behind the cover, shooting. Unfortunately, his ammunition quickly ran out. Mustached man noticed that the people on the other side were no longer resisting. He quickly led his men over to check. However, the people in the ward had already fled. Even Tae-sang was nowhere to be found. Mustached man saw that the ventilation duct was open. He immediately realized that the person had escaped. At this moment, Tae-sang is crawling inside the ventilation duct. Soldiers also entered one after another to search. A game of cat and mouse officially began. Tae-sang ran into the western end area. He crouched down and quickly moved forward. Inadvertently, he slipped into a cavity. Tae-sang fell unconscious on a pile of bones and didn't wake up. Meanwhile, Nawaldarek handed her precious porcelain to a Japanese woman. After confirming the authenticity of the porcelain, she immediately reported to the hospital's husband. The officer who answered the phone was the one who stopped Mustached Man and insisted on capturing the Koreans alive. On the other side, the officer finished interrogating young Master Juntaek. He restrained Juntaek's head, and threw him to the designated location. The men of Juntaek's father quickly helped him up. As for Ishikawa's convoy, they stopped halfway. Akiko, who was holding her big belly, got out of the carriage. She pounced into Ishikawa's arms. After setting Akiko down, the shopkeeper drove the truck and left. Ishikawa wouldn't let them go so easily. The shopkeeper noticed a car following them from behind. He immediately turned into a small road to shake off the pursuer. He drove the car into the crowd. Meanwhile, the pursuer's vehicle got blocked by the crowd. It was something Tae-sang had arranged in advance with the landlady. By the time the pursuers intercepted the shopkeeper's truck, the people inside had already moved away. The police bureau didn't give up easily. They arrested the shopkeeper and ordered a search of the entire street. Nawaldarek arranged for the survivors to take rickshaws. They escaped in different directions. On the other side, the hospital director noticed Akiko was missing. He was in a hurry, spinning around and around. However, the bespectacled guy picked up the cup on the table. Surprisingly, the water inside was gone. Only 4 people had been in this office: Chae-ok, Tae-sang, the administrator, and Akiko. Who could have drunk the water with the serum? The next second, the camera focused on Tae-sang. At that moment, he had just regained consciousness from fainting. Then Mustached Man pointed at the back of his head. Immediately after, several gunshots were heard. It is unknown whether Tae-sang is alive or dead. Chae-ok and her father left in a pedicab. Along the way, flower petals fell. Chae-ok silently prayed for Tae-sang. Yukiko, who was waiting anxiously at home, received a message that her husband wouldn't come home tonight. Ishikawa finally managed to rescue Akiko. How could he possibly go back home? Yukiko summoned the incompetent hospital director. She decided to dismiss him from his position. In order to save his own position as the director, he decided to report the goddess incident. Of course, he concealed the fact that the monster was out of control. He didn't disclose everything. The scene shifted to Tae-sang's side. Mustached Man's body lay on the side. Tae-sang tightly held the handgun. It seemed that he had won once again. But one question still lingered in everyone's mind. Who had actually drunk the cup of water? Who would become the next monster? The camera shifted to Akiko's side. A small worm was crawling under her skin. It turned out that Akiko had drunk the cup of water after Tae-sang killed Mustached Man, the military officer. He crawled into the laundry room through the ventilation duct. He found a clean Japanese military uniform to change into. The hospital director led Yukiko out of the underground second floor. This woman is the daughter of a lieutenant general in the army. She is also the main sponsor of the entire hospital. This visit is definitely to confirm the status of the goddess. Based on Yukiko's behavior, she seems to be familiar with Chae-ok's mother before the mutation. The goddess has been agitated since seeing Yukiko. Her subordinates are very concerned about her condition. The bespectacled guy explains the situation. The goddess is not agitated but anxious. She wants to find her own child. Taisang sees Yukiko entering the office alone. So he sneaks in quietly with a gun. He threatens Yukiko to find a way to take him out. Holding the gun behind her back, Yukiko dare not disobey and cooperates. Taisang successfully gets on her private car and leaves. Unfortunately, he falls into a coma before leaving, due to their past relationship. Yukiko decides not to abandon him at the Wangseong hospital. Instead, she brings him to her own place for treatment. Taisang remains unconscious for 4 days. Chayoke stays at Kim Okadang for 4 days. But Taisang doesn't return. Yoon believes that the two of them have already helped find Akiko. It is time to leave Seoul. Chayoke tells her father that the monster known as the goddess is her mother. Upon hearing this, Yoon is heartbroken. On the other side, all the merchants who assisted Taisang have been arrested and taken to the detention center by the police. The shopkeeper is undergoing severe torture. The Japanese military wants to extract information about the escaped prisoners. The shopkeeper faces round after round of torture and doesn't know how much longer he can hold on. Fortunately, Yukiko releases the conscious Taisang after learning about the shopkeeper's situation from Nawal Darek. She immediately goes to the police station to rescue him. As a police officer, Ishikawa is too busy to attend to these trivial matters. For the past 3 days, there have been 11 murder cases near Gyeonggi-echeon. The brains of all the victims are missing. The perpetrator is most likely Akiko, who started to mutate upon hearing about the unusual circumstances of the victims. The bespectacled guy specifically came to the police station to confirm. At a glance, he recognized that this was the work of a monster. He deliberately accused Taisang, Chayoke, and Akiko as suspects in the case, as they were the individuals who may have come into contact with the serum that day. Among these 3 individuals, Ishikawa's heart sank upon hearing this. He had already noticed that Akiko was acting strangely these days. The servant who served her died inexplicably, and their dead state was consistent with the bodies found near Gyeonggi-echeon. At that moment, Taisang barged in front of the office door. He came as a representative of the Bencho Business Association. He demanded that Ishikawa release the merchants of Bencho Street. Otherwise, starting from today, all the shops on Bencho Street will be closed. As a result, the fundraising party for war funds in 2 days will lose its supply of drinks and food. Ishikawa didn't waste time talking to him. Instead, he asked what secrets Wangseong Hospital had. He also asked where the escaped Koreans were. Taisang is a businessman, and if you want to get information from him, you have to pay a price. Ishikawa had no choice but to release the merchants. The shopkeeper saw that Taisang was safe, and breathed a sigh of relief, after Nawal Darek settled the injured. She asked Taisang to go find Chayoke quickly, and not keep her worried all the time. When Chayoke saw Taisang, a huge boulder in her heart fell. After going through these few days of hardship together, their feelings for each other had already developed in secret. Ishikawa's little lackey was still monitoring Taisang. When he saw this couple reuniting, he unexpectedly felt a sense of relief in his heart. Suddenly, footsteps came from behind the little lackey. He turned his head and found the mutated Akiko. The little lackey quickly pulled out his handgun and fired. But the bullets couldn't take down Akiko, just as it seemed like his head was about to be cut off. Chayoke and Taisang arrived in time. Their appearance at this moment was like getting into trouble voluntarily. The current Akiko was completely different from before. Chayoke quickly rushed forward and pushed the other person away. Akiko's speed was like that of a wild beast. Even if injured, she would immediately recover, different from the goddess injected with anthrax. Akiko hadn't completely turned into a monster. She still retained her human form. Taisang remembered that monsters were afraid of open flames. Therefore, he grabbed a wooden stick ignited by an oil lamp. As expected, Akiko was scared and kept backing away. Taisang shouted her name loudly, finally bringing Akiko back to her senses. She looked at herself, covered in blood, and couldn't help but reveal a bewildered expression. Akiko turned and ran out of the alley. The little lackey immediately fired a signal flare to notify Ishikawa. The escaping Akiko was quickly surrounded by the police. To protect the unborn child in her womb, she smashed through a window. She escaped from a nearby shop. Taisang and Chayoke followed the blood trail and chased after her. More and more people from the police station arrived. Chayoke was afraid that Akiko would meet the same fate as her mother. So, disregarding her own safety, she chased after her. The group ran into the outskirts forest. Desperate Akiko was trapped once again. Ishikawa arrived at the scene in his car. He didn't consider their relationship. He wanted to capture the pregnant Akiko. and take her back to the Wangseong hospital. Ishikawa's indifference completely angered her. Akiko lunged forward and tightly choked his neck. She tore Ishikawa's facial skin apart. The surrounding soldiers quickly opened fire upon witnessing the situation. Taisang held back Chayoke, who wanted to rush forward. He signaled her not to act recklessly. Poor Akiko was locked in an iron cage and taken away. Chayoke, feeling frustrated, returned to her residence. She noticed her father wasn't in the house. There was a letter left on the table. It turned out that Yoon had returned to Wangseong Hospital to save his wife. The bespectacled guy learned that he was the husband of the goddess. He directly took him to the presence of the monster. However, Yoon's appearance did not calm the goddess. Would it be enough if they helped her find her child? Yoon was imprisoned in Wangseong Hospital. Taisang couldn't just leave it be. He put the lucky gemstone bracelet on Chayoke's hand. They made a pact that if one of them died first, the other would remember them for a lifetime. On the other side, the director is doing everything possible to save Ishikawa, whose carotid artery is injured. It's probably difficult to survive tonight. After hearing the news, Yukiko was very indifferent. She and Ishikawa were originally in a political marriage. Yukiko doesn't care about his life or death. The person she admires in her heart is actually Taisang. At this moment, Yukiko searched through the photo album. She saw a photo of herself with the goddess. What is the connection between these two people? The director of the episode didn't mention it for now. After seeing Yukiko's attitude, the director gave up on saving Ishikawa directly. The next day, Yukiko held a funeral for her husband. Taisang read about Ishikawa's death in the newspaper. The entire article distorted the truth. It claimed that he died at the hands of a Korean serial killer. The Japanese military would undoubtedly seize this opportunity to make a big fuss. They would take advantage of it to oppress the Koreans. Taisang had a preliminary plan in his mind. He first contacted Lee In-hyuk through Juntaek. He informed him that the activities at Fumin House had been cancelled. Taisang wanted the bomb in his possession, to blow up Wangseong Hospital in one fell swoop. Chayoke came to the funeral with Taisang on her back. She took advantage of the chaos and assassinated the director of Wangseong Hospital. When the soldiers saw their commander die tragically, they immediately knocked down Chayoke. The goddess seemed to sense that her daughter was in trouble. She broke through the prison door directly. The soldiers quickly went to report the bespectacled guy that the goddess was missing. To lure out the monster, the bespectacled guy released Yoon. Unexpectedly, he pretended to be unconscious and knocked out several Japanese soldiers. Upon hearing that Chayoke was in trouble, Taisang hurriedly rushed to the scene. Little Lackey pulled him aside and informed him that Chayoke was missing. The police station also issued an order to search Kim Okdang. Little Lackey only knew this information, and considered it as a repayment for Taisang saving his life. The shopkeeper was awakened by the noise of the search, and was about to get up to check. He discovered that Park Gun was making a phone call in Japanese. It turned out that Park Gun was Yukiko's spy planted in Kim Okdang. Chayoke regained consciousness from coma, and realized that she was trapped in Yukiko's territory. Meanwhile, Yukiko arrived at Kim Okdang and lied to Taisang that Chayoke was dead. She urged him to return to his previous indifferent self in order to protect Kim Okdang. Taisang refused to believe that Chayoke was dead, and his anxious appearance seemed ironic to Yukiko. Yukiko absolutely wouldn't allow Taisang to be with Chayoke, but Taisang threatened her, and vowed to use any means necessary to find Chayoke. Yukiko retorted, asking if he was capable enough. She pointed out that he didn't even know who the people around him truly were, not to mention Park Gun, who betrayed Kim Okdang. Even Nawal Darek was the person who betrayed Taisang's mother back then. She couldn't withstand torture and revealed the address of the organization's contact, which led to the tragic death of Taisang's mother. The shopkeeper had already revealed the information that the Japanese military wanted before Taisang rushed to the police station. Juntaek talked about national righteousness, but in the hands of the Japanese military, he betrayed his comrades and friends in less than half a day. This is the despicable nature of a weak person. Yukiko questioned Taisang, "Do you want to confront me with this group of trash?" Although Taisang was saddened, he was not swayed by Yukiko's words. If it weren't for the Japanese invasion of Korea, none of us would have encountered this situation, let alone betray our compatriots under torture, and live with a lifelong sense of guilt. Yukiko knew that the friendship between them had come to an end. The shopkeeper was moved by Taisang's words, and vowed to find clues about Chayoke. Unaware that Chayoke had already been sent back to Wangseong Hospital by Yukiko, the goddess sensed her daughter and appeared immediately. At a critical moment, Park Gun's conscience kicked in, and he disclosed Chayoke's whereabouts to Taisang. After all, He had promised to be Yukiko's informant, because Yukiko had guaranteed not to harm Taisang. Park Gun had never considered betraying Kim Okadang. Taisang prepared to return to the hospital with all the bombs. At this moment, the goddess broke through the barrier, and launched a massive attack on the surrounding Japanese soldiers. The bespectacled guy quickly took Chayoke hostage, threatening the goddess to stay still. The monster indeed stood motionless, standing in place and enduring the soldiers' gunfire. On the other side, Taisang used the bombs, successfully climbed over the hospital wall. He skillfully entered the ventilation duct from the rooftop. Taisang took out the bombs from his bag and set them up, unexpectedly encountering Yoon. Taisang informed him about Chayoke's capture, then handed him 2 boat tickets, urging him to leave immediately after finding Chayoke, and leaving the rest to Taisang. Meanwhile, the bespectacled guy held Chayoke captive, led the goddess to the front gate, and then began spraying a large amount of nitrogen gas. The goddess was trapped at the intersection of the second level. Second area. Taisang heard the soldiers talking, and learned that the bespectacled guy was taking Chayoke to the emergency exit on the east side. Yoon caught Taisang, who was preparing to take action, and asked him to take Chayoke and leave. Yoon wanted to stay behind with his wife, and be destroyed together with Wangseong Hospital. He instructed Taisang to take good care of Chayoke, and get the military gasoline from the warehouse, and start placing bombs in various locations in the pipes. Taisang headed towards the emergency exit. He shot and killed the soldiers who was escorting Chayoke. The bespectacled guy took advantage of the chaos, and ran back to the office to get the remaining serum, fearing that the goddess would destroy his research results. Just as the bespectacled guy was planning to escape, he suddenly heard Akiko's cries for help. He almost forgot about this pregnant experimental subject. On the other side, Yoon finished setting up the bombs, and the fuse was about to burn out. He tapped on the wall to deliberately draw out the goddess, and then slowly walked towards his wife. But the monster didn't recognize his former lover. The next second, a huge explosion sound erupted, and the entire hospital was engulfed in flames. Taisang prepared to take Chayoke and leave during the chaos, but Chayoke insisted on going back to find her parents. Taisang revealed Yoon's prepared sacrifice. At this moment, Sakamoto suddenly appeared. He led the 2 of them to the training ground, urging them to quickly leave through the back door, as news of the Wangseong Hospital explosion had already spread. To facilitate the firefighters' efforts, the back door of the training ground was left open. Taisang drove away with Chayoke, unaware that the goddess was not dead. Nawal Darek received the news of Taisang's escape, and immediately packed cash and gold bars for Park Gun to deliver. Both sides gathered at the designated meeting point. Just as Taisang and Chayoke were about to successfully escape, an unknown convoy caught up with them. It turned out to be Yukiko appearing with a group of swordsmen. Seeing Taisang's persistence, she ordered her subordinates to take action. After Yukiko finished speaking, she got in a car and left the scene. The swordsmen quickly rushed towards Taisang and Chayoke. They were well trained with excellent swordsmanship. Taisang and Chayoke were pushed back, losing ground. Both of them were severely injured but persisted in resisting. As Chayoke was reaching her limit, the goddess unexpectedly caught up. Her tentacles pierced through the swordsmen's chests. The tide of battle instantly turned. The goddess let out a furious roar. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Taisang helped Chayoke to her feet. The swordsman joined forces to sever one of the goddess's arms, and in retaliation, she angrily slammed them into a stone pillar. By now, she was filled with rage. She swiftly pursued Taisang. Chayoke didn't have time to think and stood between them. The goddess's tentacles pierced through her daughter's body. Taisang rushed over to check Chayoke's condition. Unfortunately, she couldn't hold on for much longer and stopped breathing. In such chaotic times, it's difficult to seek a happy ending. On the other side, inside Wangseong Hospital, the bespectacled guy saved Akiko's unborn child. He had a feeling that this child would change everything. Soon after, the funeral for Ishikawa was held. Yukiko suddenly received a letter from Taisang. The note only had one sentence: farewell. Yukiko looked around suspiciously. Sure enough, she saw people from Kim Okadang, and the names on the funeral wreaths were all Koreans who died in the Wangseong Hospital incident. Yukiko immediately realized something was wrong. The next second, the bomb planted in the hall exploded. Almost all the key figures stationed in Korea lost their lives. Spring in Seoul ended quickly this year. Japan soon announced surrender and withdrawal. Republic of Korea regained independence. The Japanese stationed here gradually returned to their homeland. The bespectacled guy poured a glass of water next to Yukiko. This woman had half of her face destroyed by the explosion. For her, the water given by the bespectacled guy was an opportunity. If she drank it, she would become a mutant. The bespectacled guy left the choice to Yukiko and left. The woman stared at the table for a long time. She didn't make a clear move. As for Tai-sang, he continued praying for a miracle, hoping that there was still a turning point in the matter. Perhaps God heard his plea. In a quiet sea area, the goddess surrounded Chayoke with her tentacles. A mutated worm crawled out of her body, and slowly swam into Chayoke's mouth. The next second, Chayoke opened her eyes. This season's story ends here. It's predictable from the beginning to guess the outcome. However, the scenes depicting the atrocities of the Japanese army were well done, perhaps due to the similar historical background, so we can feel the same emotion toward the plot while watching. Although the story is somewhat cliché, its production is excellent. If we disregard the monster theme, it's not as exciting as domestic espionage films. Fortunately, Korea is truly skilled at making monster-themed works, and can attract a considerable audience with this genre.
The Japanese army stationed in Korea transformed Koreans into monsters, a massive human experimentation lab. After decades, it is still hidden underground in Seoul. As the nightmares of the old era sweep back, can the protagonists save their homeland from peril? Stop talking nonsense. Let's start right away. Compared to the first season, the story is set in a timeline 78 years later. A man named Hao Kai appears. He looks like Zheng Taishang. The man's whereabouts are mysterious, and his identity is unknown. He has scars on his back. Is Hao Kai really the Taishang from back then? The truth awaits to be revealed. At this time, he works as a representative in a trading company. Although the name sounds impressive, the entire company has only 2 people. Moreover, their work is unusual. They accept any commissions. One day, Hao Kai goes on a field assignment with the company president Long Ji. They help a wealthy woman catch evidence of her husband's infidelity. If they mess up this deal, they won't be able to pay the bank interest within the week. Long Ji puts on Hao Kai professional hidden camera glasses and urges him to act quickly. The hotel staff he bribed gives Hao Kai a note with the room number 608 written on it. At this moment, there is nothing happening in room 608. A man is staring at a notebook on the table. The monster depicted above is from 78 years ago. Just then, strange noises come from the bathroom. The man picks up a baseball bat to check. He finds nothing unusual. Just as he breathes a sigh of relief, a sudden change occurs. A tentacle pierces the man's skull. Meanwhile, Hao Kai arrives at the door of room 608. He uses his phone camera to knock on the door. There is no response from inside. At the same time, a figure in black climbs through the window. She looks at the doodles on the table. A look of shock appeared on her face. It turned out that the figure in black is the heroine Caillou. So many years have passed. She hasn't changed at all. At this moment, Hao Kai uses a master key to open the door. There is no one in the living room. Could they be taking a shower? Hao Kai opens the bathroom door. He sees blood all over the floor. Just then, he is ambushed from the shadows. He gets up and fights back. The two wrestle in the dark. Caillou knocks off Hao Kai's glasses. Long Ji cannot see what is happening inside. He rushes into the hotel, calling for the front desk to help. But Caillou has already jumped out the window. When they arrive at the room, they only see the corpse of the guest. The undercover agent in the hotel is very helpless. The note says 809, not 608. Meanwhile, Hunt received a message. It reads, "The traitor has been eliminated." The person who killed the guest in 608 is standing on the rooftop. He watched Caillou leave. On Hao Kai's side, as a witness, he is being questioned by the police. Fortunately, they are familiar with the search team leader. After all, Hao Kai has been to the police station due to illegal filming before. The leader even asks Hao Kai to investigate the suspect who jumped into 608 through the window. Can the police department really send him out? If Hao Kai is unwilling to help, the leader will have to list him as the prime suspect.
너를 줄게. 뭐가 됐든 찾아와. 이놈이 누군지, 여잔지 남잔지.
Hao Kai feels helpless. He has no choice but to take on this task. The female police officer has just been assigned to the homicide unit. She asks the team leader, "Is it okay to do this? They're only sending 2 ordinary people to investigate a serial killer?" The team leader replies, "You don't understand the situation. 3 months ago, Hao Kai and his partner helped the police catch a violent criminal. they had been tracking for 3 years. These two are very resourceful. They are best suited for catching criminals. The guest in 608 is named Wu Qixuan. He is a security guard in a biotech company. He is the 5th victim of the serial killer case. All the victims had burst eyes, and their brains were scooped out. At this time, after inquiring, Wu Qixuan's father finds a commission organization. He wants them to help find the murderer of his son. The one accepting the commission is Kai Yu. She went to room 608, at the request of old Wu, to look for his missing son. Unexpectedly, the target person is already dead. On the other side, Hao Kai starts his operation. He asks Long Ji to send the suspect's photo to all their contacts, so they can keep an eye out for anyone resembling the photo. Long Ji looks at his grandfather's photo. He sighs. Why do I have to inherit all of this? It turns out Long Ji's grandfather is Qian Jundu, a close friend of the protagonist Taishan. He left Long Ji not only the trading company, but also the connections he built over the years in various places. This is a vast web of information, more valuable than any resource. That night, Kai Yu received a new commission. She pulls up the hotel surveillance footage. She sees Hao Kai, who looks just like Taishang. She can't believe it. Could it be that Taishang is still alive? At the same time, Hao Kai repeatedly reviews the video recorded by his glasses. He noticed that the suspect is wearing a bracelet. The bracelet was a gift from Taishang to Kai Yu. The next day, Long Ji arrived. He said that 2 construction workers from New Sand Cave, they have seen the suspect upstairs. He usually appears before sunset. Then he sits on the rooftop until dark. Hao Kai rides his motorcycle to the scene. He catched a glimpse of a shadow on the rooftop. Kai Yu moves like a ghost. She heads downstairs and brushes past him. Using his 6th sense, he follows her. Kai Yu realized she is being followed. She intentionally leads him into an alley. She points a stick at Hao Kai. She demands, "Who are you?" Hao Kai raises his hands in surrender. He counters by asking Kai Yu, "Do you know Wu Qixuan?" Kai Yu looks at the familiar face. She relaxes her grip on the stick. Hao Kai quickly retaliates, but he is no match for Kai Yu. He is swiftly subdued by her. Now the two finally meet. Kai Yu calls out Taishan's name. She takes a step forward. Kai Yu embraced the person she has missed. At the same time, a young man breaks the door lock and enters Kai Yu's room. He saw Wu Qixuan's notes and a portrait of Taishang in a frame. Immediately after, the man from before goes to the building of the biotech company. This place was formerly the Wencheng Hospital. Hunt arrived at the company's basement. The Wencheng Hospital used to conduct human experiments here. The laboratory still retains. Hunt directs the researchers to conduct the experiment codenamed AO-67. A monster's tentacle extends from the opening. 2 massive creatures approach the AO-67 experimental subject. Hunt reminds him not to be afraid. If the monster sensed that you are afraid of it, it will attack you. But how can he not be afraid in front of such a terrifying creature? AO-67 tries to crawl away. In the next moment, he is pierced by a tentacle. The experiment is declared a failure once again. The monster throws the dead subject at him. It seems to be taunting Hunt, but the chairman is not satisfied with this result. He reminds Hunt that the old chairman implanted the subject in him to make him contribute to the grand cause. But if he fails again, Hunt will be eliminated. The old president is not someone else. He is a perverted doctor from Wencheng Hospital. Hao Kai knows nothing of these disasters. He simply doesn't understand why this woman, suspected of murder, is suddenly holding onto him tightly. He doesn't understand Kai Yu's feelings. Years ago, after Kai Yu fell into the water, she was infected by the subject. Kai Yu lost her sanity and went on a killing spree. She slaughtered an entire village. When Kai Yu came to her senses, she dared not touch anyone. Kai Yu lived in hiding in a corner. Kai Yu never thought she would see Taishang again. Now, Hao Kai's attitude awakens Kai Yu. Only then does she realize that the person in front of her is not Taishang. Kai Yu explains she was commissioned to go to the hotel to find the missing Wu Qixuan. She is not the killer. Hao Kai proposes a collaboration. Since the police won't let them go anyway, why not work together to catch the real culprit, the real killer? Kai Yu refused. She warns Hao Kai that things are more dangerous than he thinks. He has not yet gotten involved. He should quickly give up. Hao Kai returns to the trading company. He doesn't know why, but he feels that the name Taishang sounds very familiar. So, he asks Long Ji if he knows this person. Long Ji's expression becomes unnatural. He says he has never heard of that name. On the other side, Kai Yu returned to her residence. She discovered signs of a break-in. Then, she received a commission notice. It features a portrait of Taishang. The client says he wants to find the missing person, Zhang Haocai. This client must be the one who broke into Caillou's room and took this photo. So Caillou drives to the processing office. The cases she takes on are all handled by Anna. At this moment, Anna is talking with the client. She quickly realized that this person is after Caillou. So, she steps into the shadows to warn him. In the next moment, the client snatches the phone away. Meanwhile, the female police officer suddenly contacts Hao Kai. She brings the case report. On the surface, it seems to help Hao Kai, but in reality, she suspects him. However, Hao Kai has already noticed the policewoman sticking a listening device under the table. She is about to argue when she suddenly received a text from the police station. Another victim has emerged. Hao Kai and the female officer spring into action. As expected, this time, the victim is Anna. By the time Caillou arrived at the scene, it is already too late. The mysterious man is the killer in the murder case, and he can turn into a monster at any time. Just then, Anna calls. The call is from the mysterious man. Caillou senses there is a siren on the line. She realized that the criminal is nearby. She leans out to take a look. Unexpectedly, Hao Kai sees this scene. Caillou appears at the crime scene. This raises his suspicions. At this moment, Caillou surveys the downstairs area. She locks eyes with the mysterious man. He smiles and walks away. Caillou immediately chases after him. Hao Kai follows closely behind them. But the man has powerful skills, easily crossing the bridge. Hao Kai does not have this ability. Caillou chases to the bottom of the bridge and finds the man has vanished. She nervously scans the surroundings. Unexpectedly, in the next second, she is knocked down by the man, but Caillou quickly reacts. The two engage in a fierce struggle. However, the mysterious man gradually gains the upper hand, and he unexpectedly discovered Caillou is not an ordinary person. They are monsters and of the same kind. The mysterious man extends a tentacle and injures Caillou. Suddenly, he is pushed aside by Hao Kai. Seeing Caillou bleed, he hurriedly calls the police. The mysterious man stares at Hao Kai in shock. Then, he disappears from the spot. Soon after, an ambulance takes Caillou to the hospital. Hao Kai picks up the bracelet on the ground. He doesn't know what he is thinking. Then, he sees a doctor running in and saying, the patient from earlier is missing. Meanwhile, Hunt received a call from the chairman of Inheritance. He learned that another murder case has arisen. He angrily arrives at the secret chamber. Hunt violently beats the mysterious man. Through their conversation, we learned that the mysterious man's name is Shang Zhao. He is unwilling to hide his powers. That's why he acts impulsively. Hunt warns Shang Zhao not to act on his own anymore, or do anything outside of the plan. If he causes trouble again, he will need to explain to the chairman.
정말로 죽은 거 맞아? 호재요.
What this means is, Hao Kai has been in Inheritance. His identity is very mysterious. Shang Zhao puts the stolen portrait into a box. He takes out a photo of Ming Zi. Shang Zhao might be Ming Zi's son, who is the infected baby from Season 1. The baby who was infected. On the other side, Hao Kai worried about Caillou. He used his contacts everywhere to gather information about Caillou. An elderly man stated that Caillou has been texting with Anna. The girl rarely shows up. Hao Kai, upon hearing this, gives the old man some money. Her grandson just graduated and passed the interview with Inheritance Pharmaceuticals. Now is the time he needs money. The old man happily thanks Hao Kai, but mistakenly calls him Taishan. The old man's expression changes slightly. She quickly explained that Fujian Trading Company used to be a pawnshop. Zheng Taishan was the owner there. The older generation has heard of this person's name. Hao Kai cannot forget this matter, because a year ago, he had an accident that caused him to lose his memory. Hao Kai wants to know more details about the accident. Long Ji says, forgetfulness is a gift. Since his memories have been reset, he can forget the past and start a new life. Just as he finishes speaking, Hao Kai receives a call from an unknown number. Caillou actually comes to him. She changes her attitude. Caillou decides to agree to cooperate, but Long Ji feels heavy-hearted. He calls a woman in a kimono. Her profile looks like Luo Shen. Why did Caillou suddenly change her attitude? Because every time she experiences severe bleeding or physical exhaustion, she feels a hunger for human brains. Caillou can only suppress the impulse by injecting medication. Caillou comes back to her senses and realizes she has lost the bracelet. Taishan once said that the bracelet represents luck. When Caillou feels helpless, Hao Kai's business card comes into view. She goes to the address written on it. Kai-yu discovered that the trading company is located where the pawnshop used to be. Hao Kai sees her pale face. He asks how her wound is healing. Kai-yu sets 2 rules. First, no personal questions. Second, Hao Kai must follow her orders. This is a dictatorial clause. Kai-yu explained the information she has discovered. Now, Anna's phone is in the killer's hands. He previously commissioned Kai-yu to find the person in the portrait. Hao Kai takes it to look at it. Isn't the person in the portrait him? At this moment, the female officer listens to the conversation through the bug. She deceives Hao Kai with her actions. She secretly placed the device. Long Ji eavesdrops through the crack in the door. At the same time, Shang Zhao reports to Hunt that he encountered another of his kind outside. Just as he finishes speaking, Shang Zhao received a call from Kai-yu, but the voice on the line is Hao Kai's. Shang Zhao hangs up and sends a text. He requests to meet tonight. Kai-yu is afraid of exposing her identity as a monster. She wants to go to the meeting alone, but Hao Kai agreed to cooperate. He won't allow Kai-yu to take risks. Kai-yu cannot refuse. She has to agree. Kai-yu looks at the cluttered hallway. She remembers there should be a window here. Finally, Long Ji is also worried about Hao Kai. He goes out to help watch over the two. The 3 of them drive to the agreed location. Kai-yu hands Hao Kai an invisible earpiece and a flashbang. The meeting place set by Shang Zhao is an abandoned building. The 2 split up to survey the surroundings. The building structure is complex. Shadows appear blurry in the darkness. Hao Kai immediately turns around, but the shadow vanishes in an instant. They arrive at area R2. They do not see Shang Zhao. Kai-yu suddenly loses contact as well. At this moment, shadows hidden in the dark scurry around. Kai-yu realizes the situation is bad. She tells Hao Kai to retreat. Kai-yu, like a ghost, engages in a struggle with the men in black. Hao Kai is surrounded and pursued. He crashed through a wall and get up to escape. Fortunately, the men in black are not high-level monsters. The only trouble is, there are too many ambushes. This fight scene should be very exciting. Why say should? Because in the dark, the enemies are all dressed in black, and their movements are impossible to see. You can only hear the sounds, so it can be inferred that Kai-yu's fighting ability is strong. Long Ji is very anxious outside. He holds a baseball bat, and ready to enter the building. Long Ji runs into Shang Zhao. Hao Kai is fighting while running. Along the way, he is kicked down to the first floor. The men in black jump down. Like dumplings, all of them follow and jump down. This scene is somewhat comical. In a critical moment, a pile of things falls from above, knocking many people down. Immediately after, Kai-yu suddenly appeared. She pulled Hao Kai and ran toward a safe place. They run to the upper levels. They lock the door. The men in black pound on the door outside. The iron door is dented from the blows. Such strength is not something a human could possess. The iron door won't hold for long. Kai-yu looks down at the window. She estimates the height. There is a lot of debris and waste on the ground. She turns and kicks Hao Kai down. As he falls, Hao Kai recalls some memories. He struggles to get up despite the pain. Hao Kai goes to find Long Ji. He saw Shang Zhao approaching with a stick. Hao Kai asks Shang Zhao what his purpose truly is.
정말 모든 기억이 다 사라진 건지, 정말 아무것도 안 남은 건지.
Then, Shang Zhao's hand transforms into a monster form. He launches a direct attack. Hao Kai has no ability to resist. He can only dodge the attacks. Even so, he is still seriously injured. Shang Zhao thinks, this is no fun in this state. Meanwhile, on Kai-yu's side, without Hao Kai's burden, she finally unleashes her full power. Kai-yu wields dual blades. She kills as easily as chopping vegetables. Kai-yu's speed is incredibly fast. Although Kai-yu's combat ability is strong, the number of men in black is too great. Normal damage cannot kill them. Thus, Kai-yu quickly falls into encirclement. She struggles hard to break free. Kai-yu dodges countless curved blades. She kills the leading man in black. Kai-yu finally stabilizes the situation. A large, muscular man appeared. He throws several gas grenades over. Kai-yu tries to run. She is caught by a masked man. He grips her neck tightly, until Kai-yu stops struggling. They drag her out of the building, and hand her over to Shang Zhao. Shang Zhao extends a tentacle, piercing through Kai-yu's abdomen. Hao Kai sees this scene. He suddenly has a headache. Hao Kai remembers the memories of Taishan. He crawls to Kai-yu's side. Hao Kai covers her wound, and Shang Zhao sees Hao Kai's scar. Just then, Long Ji drives in, crashing towards them. Hao Kai throws out a flashbang just in time. He carried Kai-yu into the car and leaves, but Shang Zhao does not let his men pursue, because Kai-yu's wound hasn't healed. In addition, today, she sustained the same injury again. The wound is bleeding severely. Symptoms of hunger and thirst. These desires cannot be suppressed. At this moment, Caillou is on the brink of losing control. She kicked Pen the car door and rushed out. The car flips over from the impact. Hawkeye sees Caillou leaving. He fears she will be caught up. Little did he know, the taste of blood is tormenting for Caillou, but Hawkeye doesn't understand what's happening. He cannot ignore Caillou. He can only hold Caillou tightly. Soon after, the female officer chases them to the vicinity, but there is no one in the overturned car. The female officer surveys the surroundings. She finds Long Ji in a pool of blood, and Hawkeye who had held the baseball bat. During Hawkeye's unconsciousness, he dreamed of the Wenqing hospital. He could never escape the dark underground, until a huge monster appeared. Hawkeye wakes up from the dream. He discovered that he is shackled to the hospital bed, because Long Ji's life is in danger. The weapon has Hawkeye's fingerprints on it, so he is suspected of harming Long Ji. Hawkeye only remembered that, after he held Caillou last night, he was knocked out from behind by Long Ji. Hawkeye is unclear about what happened afterward. In the previous storyline, the kimono-clad elderly woman Long Ji contacted is actually the antagonist Madame Mayetta from last season, and also the owner of the Inheritance Biotechnology Company. Long Ji surprisingly has connections with Mayetta. He is not a simple person. At this moment, the police arrived at the abandoned building. The fight marks on the walls are beyond human capabilities. There are nitrogen tanks among the debris. The search team leader has many questions, so he asks the female officer to consult the doctor when Hawkeye can be discharged to cooperate with the investigation. While the female officer inquires at the front desk, a person disguised as a nurse slided a note into Hawkeye's hand. The latter looks up to see. This person turns out to be Shang Zhao. If he wants to find Caillou, Hawkeye needs to follow him. When the female officer returns to the ward, Hawkeye has already disappeared. She immediately notifies the police team. Meanwhile, Shang Zhao exits the hospital. He finds the motorcycle still in place. It turned out that the male lead is worried about Long Ji, so he risks going to the intensive care unit to visit him. He doesn't understand why Long Ji knocked him out. The police are about to rush into the intensive care unit. Hawkeye prepares to leave. Long Ji makes a weak sound. He repeatedly says, "Don't go back. Don't return to the past. You are now Zhang Haocai." By the time the police arrive, the person has already vanished. At this moment, Caillou is once again locked in the nightmarish Wenqing hospital. Hunt is studying her x-rays. Caillou and Shang Zhao are very similar. When the parasites enter the brain in larval form, they usually take root near the top of the skull. But the parasites in these two people's brains are both rooted in the back of the head, in the occipital lobe and memory regions. Since Shang Zhao implanted the adult form from his mother, Caillou was likely implanted in the same way. Could it be that their mother's genes are protecting them? Caillou frantically pounds on the door until a patient on the opposite side speaks to stop her. "Don't waste your effort. You won't be able to open it." This boy is Zhang Hio. He has a disability in his right leg. He suffers from acquired polio. That's why he was able to pass the interview, because the parasites need test subjects. The people from the company deceive the employees. They have developed a new drug. When people drink it, they can receive 10 million won, and it can cure various difficult ailments. Zhang Hio, who feels inferior due to his disability, after the old woman received a remittance, she is unable to contact her grandson. Everyone who was admitted with Zhang Hio has died. Now, only he is left struggling. On the other side, Hawkeye returns to the trading company. He rummages through things. He hopes to regain his memories. After looking at a photo of Quan Jun-do, he found a photo of Taishang with the Kim family. The man looks just like him. Hawkeye seems to be transported back to the day the photo was taken. Everyone's faces are incredibly vivid. Immediately after, he recalls another detail. When Caillou came here, she stared at the storage room for a long time. Hawkeye knocked on the wall. He discovered that the wall was hollow. He kicked through the wall panel. Relying on his muscle memory, he opened the secret door of the pawn shop. Inside were various collectibles and documents, including a file on Caillou. Just then, the light suddenly went out. Hawkeye carefully walks out. He picks up a weapon for self-defense, but the person who arrives is Shang Zhao. He toys with Hawkeye, like a cat with a mouse. He mocks Hawkeye. He can't help but sneer. "Bro, your moves are too slow." Hawkeye indeed is not a match for Shang Zhao now. Hawkeye can only rely on backslash, his unwillingness to give up, and his fearless spirit. He charges forward recklessly. Through Shang Zhao, we learned that how Kai was able to subdue all the parasite monsters before the two fight in the darkness. The female officer comes knocking again. She catches sight of the motorcycle at the door. The female officer steps forward to knock on the door. She finds the trading company has been locked from the inside. Shang Zhao has the upper hand. He wants to force Hao Kai to confront everything that has happened. This is the way to regain his former self. The female officer hears the sounds of fighting. She bursts in through the back door, but the people inside have long since vanished. Shang Zhao drags Hao Kai. They arrived in front of a water tank. Inside the tank is a parasite. Shang Zhao states, "Do you want to return to how you were before? The choice is in your hands." The scene shifts back to the underground of the Inheritance Company. Hunt is interrogating Caillou. He wants to know if there are any of her kind outside. Caillou asks him upon hearing this.
설마 여기가 옹성병원 아니지?
Hunt reveals the truth. After the Greater East Asia War ended, the hospital was closed down. Most of it became ruins. Former chairman Mr. Kato and Madame Mayeda established the Inheritance Biotechnology Company atop the ruins. Currently, his son Shin Jiwoo is in power. Caillou realized that the nightmare has never ended. Meanwhile, Madame Mayeda arrived at the Inheritance Company. Caillou is brought before her. The old woman outside is Madame Mayeda, a soulless puppet. The real Mayeda retains her youthful appearance. Next, the story of what happened between Mayeda and Taishang is told. What exactly transpired after the war ended back then? Caillou vanished due to being infected by the parasites. Taishang has been guarding the Kim family all along. Unexpectedly, one day, he suddenly received a mysterious letter. Someone invites Taishang to meet at a bar. He didn't expect it to be Mayeda. She did not perish in the flames, but instead survived. Because of the parasites, she resents Taishang for his cruelty towards her, so she adheres to the principle of destroying what she cannot have. Mayeda instructs assassins to entangle Taishang. She secretly sends another group to infiltrate the Kim family. Madame Mayeda knows well that to conquer Taishang and to reshape his values, she needs to shatter and remold him. On that day, the Kim family became a nightmare. No one escaped from Madame Mayeda's massacre. Uncle Jia Ping, Aunt Luo, and Xiao Bao. Taishang was nearly incapacitated by the henchmen. Madame Mayeda pulls out a parasite. She decided to give Taishang a gift. When he wakes up from the Kim family, Taishang sees Aunt Luo on the brink of death, and Uncle Jiaping and Xiao Bao hanging dead. Taishang lets out a horrified scream. Everything he built shatters. But soon, even more troublesome situations arise. The parasites make Taishang ravenous. At this moment, Aunt Luo regains consciousness. She struggles to control herself from killing him. Taishang urged Aunt Luo to run, but she replies that it's okay. She can handle it. In the next moment, Taishang completely turns into a monster. The timeline shifts back to the present. Madame Mayeda laments. Caillou is truly a masterpiece. No wonder she inherited the monster of the goddess parasite. Caillou cries out in pain. Doesn't she like Taishang?
친구가 될 수 없다면 그 사람의 지옥이라도 돼볼까 하고요.
Why can't she even spare him? Mayeda's revenge has only just begun. She orders them to throw Caillou into a room. Through the glass, she saw Hao Kai lying on the ground. Shang Zhao urged him to choose quickly. If Hao Kai does not implant the parasite, in a moment, he will bleed to death. Of course, more importantly, Hao Kai wants to become stronger. He wants to protect Caillou, so he crawls into the pool and accepts the parasite. His scars heal rapidly. Hao Kai regained all his memories. At this point, Hao Kai finally transforms back into Taishang. Since things cannot be changed, Caillou just wants to break through the encirclement, to be by his side. But in the blink of an eye, Taishang arrived behind Shang Zhao. He punched Shang Zhao. Caillou and Taishang quickly escape. Madame Mayeda orders Hunt to capture Taishang. Caillou can kill him directly. Shang Zhao watches as if it were a show. He said that currently, the only ones who can deal with Taishang are Hunt and the imprisoned No. 71. He wants to see how they will choose. Hunt orders the release of the Black Ones. It is unclear what the Black Ones specifically refer to, but they can't be internet trolls. At this moment, Taishang is fighting alongside Caillou. The overhead lights suddenly flicker incessantly. Immediately after, a group of men in black rushed out. It turns out they are the Black Ones. The director enjoys designing dark battle scenes. This time, he added the effect of flashing overhead lights. The director might be afraid that we can see the actors' movements clearly. In summary, this fight scene describes Taishang and Caillou teaming up in a love story against the men in black. No matter how many villains appear, they cannot stop the power of love. But Taishang accidentally stabs Caillou. Now the female lead is seriously injured. She cannot continue to fight the men in black. In a critical moment, Shang Zhao sabotages the surveillance to help the two escape. He pretends to be injured. Shang Zhao points out that Taishang ran toward the No. 5 passage. Hunt noticed the injuries on the men in black. He becomes somewhat suspicious of Shang Zhao, but Hunt still turns and leaves, heading toward the No. 5 exit. Injured Caillou lies not far away. Taishang is alone in the No. 5 passage, attracting attention. Shang Zhao says, there is a secret exit here. As long as Taishang is careful, he will definitely be able to escape. Meanwhile, Hunt waits at the No. 5 passage exit. Hunt fails to intercept Taishang. He is extremely angry. Hunt orders someone to bring Shang Zhao over. At this moment, Shang Zhao has already moved Caillou. He finds Taishang in the secret passage and tells him to hurry and meet up with Caillou.
고맙다, 손주야.
아, 머리에 손 얹지 말랬지 내가.
As Shang Zhao leaves, he finally speaks his heart. A year ago, I couldn't escape to save you. I'm sorry. Soon, Taishang escapes from the secret passage underground. He saw Caillou waiting in a chair. The two embrace each other tightly, silently celebrating their reunion. Next, the story of Shang Zhao is told. He was a special child from a young age. He encountered a special mother. Madame Mayetta tells Shang Zhao, killing is not a problem, but you must not be discovered. Shang Zhao has always wanted to gain his mother's approval, so he cooperates unconditionally with those cruel experiments. Even if it's just once, he wants to experience the feeling of maternal love. Until one time, Shang Zhao overheard a conversation between Mayetta and the doctor. He learned that his real mother is named Akiko. The parasites first underwent a considerable amount of learning within the mother's body, then enter Shang Zhao's body. Thus, the synchronization phenomenon became more active, just like how the goddess activated her body to protect her daughter Caillou. Shang Zhao's brain has always been protected by Akiko. After hearing this conversation, Shang Zhao repositions himself. He realized he is just a test subject. Madame Mayetta arranges for someone to hand Shang Zhao a syringe.
次の計画もよろしゅう頼むわね。
At this moment, Shang Zhao arrived at Zhang Hio's cell. He helps this test subject regain his freedom. Releasing a monster will, as one can imagine, lead to predictable consequences. Meanwhile, the old woman finds the search team leader. She asks the leader to search for her missing grandson. Zhang Hio disappeared. After attending company training, he has vanished. The old woman calls the Inheritance Pharmaceuticals to confirm they have no training activities at all. Upon hearing Inheritance Pharmaceuticals, the leader feels a surge of anxiety, because all the victims of the serial murders are connected to the Inheritance Company. Some are biotech researchers, and some are security guards from the company. The leader worried that Zhang Hio may have already been murdered. A breaking news update interrupts the TV broadcast. In the escalator area of the Seoul subway station, a murder incident has occurred. 3 people have died at the scene, and the surveillance clearly captured the face of the killer Zhang Hio. On the other side, Shang Zhao goes to see Taishang. He directly admits that it was he who did it, but it was Madame Mayetta's order. She is plotting something even more dangerous. Although Shang Zhao is unclear about the specifics, once the plan succeeds, there will certainly be more deaths. Now that Zhang Hio has caused such a big uproar, the chairman will be furious with Hunt. Hunt suddenly retorts, if this matter threatens the peace of the inheritance, he will directly eliminate the danger, no matter whether the danger is Taishang Zhang or your incompetence. Madame Mayetta cannot hinder the development of the inheritance. The chairman feels fearful. He softens his tone, telling Hunt to handle the aftermath. He will consult Madame Mayetta. At this moment, Zhang Hio is already detained at the police station. He exhibits extreme aggression, and Zhang Hio is delirious. He scratches the team leader. Soon, Hunt arrives at the police station with his men. Taishang decided to rescue Zhang Hio. Shang Zhao truly does not understand. Can't he just take Caillou and leave? Why does he always want to clean up after others? Taishang knows well that if the hidden dangers are not eradicated, simply relying on escape will not lead to true freedom. As soon as he finishes speaking, Taishang received a call from the female officer. He learned that people from Inheritance want to take Zhang Hio away. At this moment, the lawyer holds a nitrogen canister and says the police station has called the company regarding the issue of the canister. In fact, This is a portable nitrogen bomb designed to subdue violent infected individuals. Inheritance Pharmaceuticals is studying the cause of the infection. They need to take Jung Hyo away. The Disease Control Center issued an official letter and has reported to the leadership of the police department. The team leader refused to release him. Hunt stated that, compared to solving cases, isn't the safety of citizens more important than solving the case? What if the disease spreads? The consequences would be unimaginable. After confirming with the CDC, the class leader seeks confirmation from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. He can only agree to let Hunt take Jung Hyo away. As the inheritance vehicle arrives at the entrance, they run into Taishan and the others. They chase after the convoy. The female officer also follows behind. At this time, Caillou exchanges glances with Taishan. They split up to intercept the convoy. On the way, Sheng Zhao tells Caillou, a year ago, Taishan wanted to destroy the inheritance laboratory. He unconditionally trusted Taishan. He wanted to help Taishan. At that time, Sheng Zhao truly believed he could die for Taishan. But that day, he was stopped by Madame Mayetta. Sheng Zhao knelt before her. He pleaded with his mother to let him go, but Mayetta injected him with a dose of medication. This drug can put the parasites into a sleeping state within 24 hours. Don't you want to be a normal person? If you are confident enough to betray me and help Taishan as an ordinary person, then you can leave. Sheng Zhao cuts his palm with a knife. The wound indeed does not heal. He watches helplessly as Taishan is pushed off the bridge. He doesn't have the courage to help.
무서운 건 미안해야 할 일이 아니야.
Upon hearing this, Sheng Zhao is unsure of his feelings, but he still injects the syringe into Caillou's body. The car lost control and crashed down the overpass. Within 24 hours, Caillou will lose her regenerative abilities. She will be no different from an ordinary person. She doesn't understand the reason why Sheng Zhao is doing this.
말했잖아. 무서웠다고.
On the other side, Taishan meets Hunt. Hunt can't help but mock. How dare you still trust Sheng Zhao? Until now, Taishan has not doubted. A great battle is about to break out, and Hunt has an unwavering determination to win, because he promised his beloved he would help her heal her disability. It turned out that Hunt has been cultivating a parasitic insect in Jung Hyo's body to transplant it to his loved one in 3 months. Taishan is focused on dealing with Hunt. Caillou crawls out of the car. Sheng Zhao is still introspecting. After meeting Taishan, Sheng Zhao once fantasized that he would live openly like him, living a righteous life. But soon, Sheng Zhao realized that he is more like a monster. Sheng Zhao has no qualms about killing and predation. He known that Akiko died a tragic death. Yet Sheng Zhao feels nothing. He believed that the past should be left in the past. Madame Mayetta had instructed Sheng Zhao to bring Caillou alive before her. Madame Mayetta wants this woman to die at Taishan's hands. He wants to defeat Taishan. Sheng Zhao's only remaining kindness is to disobey the order and kill Caillou. Unexpectedly, the female officer suddenly disrupts things. Caillou sees the opportunity to escape. She shoves the female officer into the car. Caillou urged her to leave. The next moment, a large group of men in black arrived. Caillou's parasites, although in a deep sleep state, her agility and skills remain intact. Moreover, the men in black are targeting Sheng Zhao. He is already blinded by rage. Caillou is about to take the chance to escape, but she is surrounded by another group of men in black. On the other side, Taishan is still grappling with Hunt, and he discovered a syringe has fallen to the ground. He quickly grabs it before Hunt can. Then Taishan removed the cap. He charged at Hunt. Hunt grips Taishan's hand, reminding him, Madame Mayetta wants Caillou. She will kill everyone Taishan loves. But for Hunt, it doesn't matter who wins in the end. He does not care. At the same time, Long Ji awakens from his coma. After Taishan fell off the bridge years ago, he had the parasites extracted from his body. Long Ji kneels before Madame Mayetta, pleading for his life. He starts anew with Taishan, so he is not a bad person. The team leader learned that Long Ji has awakened, and he prepares to go to the hospital. Just as the team leader hits the road, he is struck and overturned by a truck. At the same time, Madame Mayetta realized that Hunt has betrayed her. He has sent people to abduct Jung Hyo. Taishan decided to stop wasting time with Hunt. He heads to Inheritance to meet Madame Mayetta. Unexpectedly, more than 70 years have passed, and they are still standing face to face. Madame Mayetta asks Taishan if he still believed that human lives have equal value. What if it were the life of Caillou, or the lives of Park Long Ji, the team leader, or Jung Hyo? Now, Madame Mayetta needs Taishan to make a choice. If he wants to save Caillou, the others must die. He must weigh one life against several lives. At this moment, Long Ji and the others are locked underground. Soon, Madame Mayetta will remove Caillou's parasites. This will have two outcomes. Either, like Taishan before, she loses all her memories, or she drowns in the tank. Time waits for no one. Madame Mayetta urges Taishan to make a decision quickly. This woman has become so twisted, because she possesses everything, eternal life and endless wealth, have numbed Madame Mayetta. Now, her only interest is Taishan. Madame Mayetta aims to shatter Taishan's faith. She wants to prove that the values Taishan holds are wrong. Upon hearing this, Taishan becomes instantly furious. He injects the sleeping drug into Madame Mayetta. The men in black rush out to protect their master. They cannot stop Taishan, but the monster locked underground is about to charge towards Long Ji and the others. Caillou's fate is uncertain. He must make a decision. At this moment, Taishan suddenly smashes the ground. He uses all his strength to shatter the glass. Taishan jumps into the basement. He picks up a metal rod. He prepares to confront the monster. Meanwhile, Hunt approaches Caillou. He tells her that Taishan has made the wrong choice. Now he will be torn apart by the monster, and she will die in this tank. They place too much importance on emotions, which is why they cannot win. As soon as he finishes speaking, Hunt grabs Caillou by the throat. He throws Caillou into the tank. The scene shifts. On Taishan's side, even though he is powerful, he is at a disadvantage against the massive monster. He does not have the upper hand. Taishan can only buy time. He helps Long Ji and the others escape from the underground. After everyone has left, Taishan finally fights the monster. But this monster is very difficult to deal with. Taishan is forced to retreat. He has to hide behind a stone pillar to catch his breath. The monster pierced his chest with its tentacles. Taishan peeks out to observe. He quickly locks onto the monster's weak points and weapon locations. He stares into the monster's eyes. Taishan has succeeded. He has accomplished what Hunt wanted to achieve. Under Taishan's pressure, the monster prepares to retreat. Unexpectedly, Madame Mayetta activates the nitrogen. In this critical moment, Taishan jumps off the monster. He successfully escapes the dungeon. He instructs Long Ji to take everyone away. Taishan prepares to go back to save Caillou. Madame Mayetta stands in front of him with a gun. Taishan treats her like air. He rushes toward the tank room. Just then, Shang Zhao arrived underground. He questions Madame Mayetta. Why do you want to kill him? Because she believed that Shang Zhao is a failed experiment. Madame Mayetta pushes him forward, teaching him, with the aim of turning Shang Zhao into someone unbound by any constraints, to become a perfect being on his own. But he has always sought maternal love. He relies on Taishan. Such a creation does not deserve to live. As soon as these words are spoken, Shang Zhao's only hesitation shatters. He steps forward and stabs Madame Mayetta to death. From now on, he will no longer be bound by anyone. Shang Zhao will become the most perfect monster, and Madame Mayetta perishes in the nitrogen. On the other side, Hunt extracts the parasitic insect he wanted from Caillou. The next moment, Taishan bursts in and kills all obstacles. He smashes the tank room. Taishan successfully rescued Caillou. Hunt returned to check. The parasite has died from dehydration. Soon after, Inheritance Pharmaceuticals is investigated. Caillou loses all her memories. She becomes an ordinary person. Now, Caillou lives in the old woman's house. However, she occasionally dreams of a person's silhouette. Caillou always feels that she seems to have forgotten something important. Fortunately, Seoul is small. Fated people will meet again. The film ends here. Compared to the terrible sequel of Sweet Home, the second season of City Monster is much better. Although the monster content is low, it explores deeper meanings. This has written a relatively reasonable ending for the previous season's action characters. In the film, Taishan explains to Shang Zhao why he refused to let go of grudges, and his reasons for opposing inheritance. Taishan fights against them, not to win, but to make them remember what they have done. Taishan wants them to feel remorse. He wants them to have a sense of guilt. If they have no guilt at all, then Taishan wants them to feel that he is a nuisance, a bother, because he feels troubled. Only in this way will they not forget